Do not be concerned. We will inherit the $3 million plus the apartment complex that your father left behind." My brother's wife, Kathy, said with assurance and what appeared to be excitement. In front of the picture of my deceased father, she grinned. She appeared to be the epitome of evil, but she was seriously misinformed. I would wait patiently till the misunderstanding was straightened up. I could not let whatever my father left end up in the hands of that kind of person. "I am Emma. I'm a 45-year-old single lady." "Hey, Emma, could you do a final check on the blueprint that's due tomorrow?" "Sure, Dad." I began the last review of the blueprint at my father's request. At the architectural firm where my father works, I manage both administrative and creative tasks. I've been interested in my father's job since I was a small child, and I hope to follow in his footsteps professionally. I majored in architecture and design in high school and college in order to achieve this goal, and I joined my father's business as soon as I graduated. Together, we have carried on our business. My father has named me to be the next manager, and our staff members have faith in me. My brother, who is 5 years older than I am and is majoring in liberal arts, is not interested in design and is not likely to be involved in the company's administration or day-to-day operations. Therefore, I am not overly concerned about the business's succession. The little business, which my father took over from my grandfather, employs roughly 15 people. That's my resolution, to love and expand our company going forward. I'm done with all my work, Dad. I'm going home to get dinner ready. Thank you and good job for today. My father usually insisted on workers leaving on time unless an exceptional circumstance arose. That particular day, as 6 o'clock rolled around, the majority of the crew had already left for their homes, leaving just my father and myself at work. He would work late into the night every day and would always advise managers to work hard and not slack off. Although my father was celebrating his 75th birthday that year, I have always respected him for it. He was becoming older, and I hoped he wouldn't take on too much work. When they got home, the house was completely dark. It's only my father and me now because my mother passed away in an accident while I was in my 20s. I heard the door open just as I turned on the light and got ready to make dinner. "Oh, Emma, are you here?" It was my brother's wife, Kathy's voice. When supper time arrived, I pondered what she required. "What brings you here so late?" "You don't matter to me." "Where is your father?" Kathy said some harsh comments, but I honestly didn't have any affection for her. It appeared that she hadn't felt particularly fond of me since before she wed my brother. "Leave your folks behind and lead an untidy life," she would frequently advise. "Don't expect to rely on us when you get older." Arguing is useless, but I live on my own without my father's support and don't plan to approach my brother and his wife for assistance when I'm elderly. I may say everything I want, but she never listens. "You're not dependent while you have a job thanks to your father's business," she said, launching into another tirade. "No one can foresee the future. You should start saving for retirement early as you get older." She would always be critical of me whenever she got the chance. I learned from our conversation that it is pointless to converse with someone who holds grudges against me. I've made every effort not to get close to her since. My brother's wife was born in his 40s, therefore they haven't had kids yet. "You're a burden to society because you can't have even one child," she said with such arrogance. I never actually said that to her, but it certainly applies to her. That's because, according to my brother, Kathy had a medical condition in the past and is unable to conceive. As a result, please stay away from that subject. I am aware that there are two types of people: those who can wish for children but have chosen not to have them, and those who are unable to have children despite wanting them. Even so, I was unable to understand my brother's decision to wed her. I felt like there were always questions hovering over my head at that point. How I hated them, oh. "When will your dad be returning home?" "He's probably going to get home late tonight. He promised to visit the apartment first." "That apartment?" With a cunning smile, Kathy said. My father originally inherited that apartment from his grandfather. As it were, we had given it away. Dad continued to treasure it as a possession he inherited from my dad and visited it frequently. He even actively participated in the weeding and cleaning that the property management business often undertook. Hearing that Dad wouldn't be returning anytime soon seemed to please the residents of the house, so Kathy hurriedly packed up her belongings and started getting ready to depart. What would her actual goal be? Remember to inform your dad that I stopped by to see how he's doing. Remember not to forget. Kathy gave me these directions, looked around the home, and walked out. Kathy came over Dad. I'm curious as to her desires. I'm not sure. She visited me earlier while I was by myself, but she merely sat there and did nothing. Really, I'm relieved that I wasn't at home. With a sardonic smirk, my dad said, Dad and I were both unable to understand her genuine motivations. She is a little strange, so perhaps her motivations are beyond the comprehension of the average person, but it doesn't really bother me. Emma, I had a great meal today, too. I am constantly appreciative. With unusual gratitude, Father said. What's wrong with you now? It seems strange, I said in jest, to which my dad laughed. You've grown so dependable, Emma. Perhaps it is time for me to step down. What topic are you discussing? Dad, I still have a lot to learn from you. Is that accurate? I suppose I'll take a bath and go to bed now. Good night. Good night. A week later, he suddenly collapsed at work. At the time, I was in a meeting at a client's office and received an urgent call from a colleague. Emma, the boss. My father is unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital. I immediately wrapped up my work and headed to the hospital, called my brother right away, and then contacted Kathy. My brother promised to come to the hospital quickly, but Kathy's response was, do I need to go there? You're there, aren't you, Emma? What to have such a reaction when your father-in-law is in critical condition? However, it was pointless to argue now. I tried to remain calm and persuade her. Actually, Dad's condition is quite critical. At least come to say goodbye. You used to visit my father often, didn't you? But an unexpected response came back. Yeah, I was just trying to be in his good books, hoping to get some information about the inheritance. Hearing Kathy say that so nonchalantly, I was speechless. I'm not good with hospitals, and if there's a funeral, I need to get my hair and nails done. I don't have time to go to the hospital. Her utterly impossible attitude was brimming with vitality. This person is simply no good. Understood then, never mind. I couldn't contain my anger and raised my voice. I hoped this outrage would make her reflect, even if just a little, but the response that came back was, "Contact me after he passes away. I'm busy too." Her dismissive tone increased my anger toward her. She was more than just an unpleasant person. Being legally recognized as family and sisters with such a person was unbearable. 2 hours after that call, my father passed away quietly. He was 75 years old. We immediately began arranging the wake and the funeral. There wasn't even time for the family to mourn due to the rush of various preparations. Despite this, my brother, who should be fulfilling his duty as the chief mourner, seemed emotionally detached. Emma, did Dad have any special illness? His passing seemed so sudden. What exactly does the chief mourner do? Do you know? Wait, I have to give a speech. That's such a hassle. At 50 years old, my brother was failing to fulfill his role as the chief mourner. I was angered by his nonchalant remarks, but I was even more astonished by Kathy's attitude. Why should I, as the wife of the eldest son, have to step forward? I hate troublesome things. You do it. With that, she immediately disappeared to the back. I was also scrambling with greeting the attendees, detailed meetings with the funeral home, and interactions with the company. In the midst of all this business, her indifference was unbearable. I could understand feeling inconvenienced since he wasn't her own parent, but such an attitude was inexcusable. My anger turned to sadness. Well, Kathy has her own difficulties, too. Emma, please handle her part as well. My brother was always taking Kathy's side. Does he even know the rude things his wife has said? Those words nearly escaped my lips, but I felt it was futile to inform my ineffectual brother of the reality. In the end, I ignored my brother and his wife and focused on fulfilling my duties. With the help of relatives, we managed to complete the funeral without incident. It was during the first 7 days of mourning when the relatives gathered again, sharing drinks. He passed away without suffering, so he must be content now. The one who spoke to me was my father's younger sister, my aunt, who was 15 years his junior. Still young at 60 to me, my aunt was like a sister with whom I could talk about anything despite our age difference. As my aunt and I were reminiscing, Kathy suddenly stood in front of us, exuding the aura of a villain from a drama. If this were a drama, even someone who just tuned in would immediately know she's the antagonist. Shall we get started? What are you starting? I tilted my head, not grasping her intention. It's about inheritance. My husband is the eldest son, so the $3 million inheritance and that apartment are rightfully ours. I checked the bank book the other day. My aunt and I were surprised by this abrupt talk of inheritance, exchanging glances. How did she check the bank book, which was securely locked away in the depth of a safe? We were at a loss for words. Kathy, presuming to control the situation, confidently continued, "You have the company in this house, don't you? What more could you want?" Before I could explain, she unilaterally pushed on with her agenda. Next to her, my brother, as if uninterested, simply kept drinking silently. "Maybe I'll raise the apartment rent a bit. If the rental income increases, our life will be easier. Or maybe we could rebuild it. Your dad really left us a valuable inheritance." Her loud voice echoed, and the relatives fell into a hush. Silence. But then someone couldn't suppress a laugh. One uncontrollable laugh spread to others, who began to look down, covering their faces with handkerchiefs. Then my aunt whispered to me, "Is she joking? If you have something to say, speak up." Kathy glared at my aunt with her arms crossed, looking imperious. My aunt and I could only offer a wry smile. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain the situation. Kathy, there is no inheritance left for my brother to receive." "What do you mean?" "There's no way. There is nothing. Are you trying to trick me?" Kathy's face, once triumphant, was now filled with anger. "The circumstances are different. The apartment belongs to my aunt, and I have taken over the company. The inheritance from Dad has already been passed on completely, so there is nothing left for my brother to inherit." "Now what?" "That's news to me. I haven't been informed of anything at all since this was decided before my brother married. Kathy's misunderstanding was understandable, as she didn't know the full story. Here's the situation. It was only natural for my father to want to pass the company to me after years of working with him. I had initially resisted, feeling it to be a heavy responsibility, but it was very important to him. He had a strong desire to pass his business onto his own flesh and blood. When I decided to take over the management, we went through the proper legal procedures for inheritance with a lawyer. As for the apartment, it was Dad's lifetime gift to my aunt and uncle, a decision made when Grandpa passed away. Everything about the company has been settled, and my brother agreed when it was decided that I would take over. Lastly, the ownership of this family home has also been transferred to my name, so there is really nothing left for my brother to inherit now." My brother seemed to remember something as I went over the specifics with him, and he started talking. "Yes, that makes sense now. My father handed me a sizable sum of money as a gift that would last a lifetime. Was it really that? I suddenly found myself with a large sum of money, which I spent thoughtlessly." "Yes, exactly," I replied. "When he was single, my brother used to spend a great deal of money. He appeared to change automobiles frequently, traveled abroad more than 3 times a year, and had much upgraded tastes and brands. So Andy is the owner of the apartment. I've always assumed I'll inherit it. My brother must have given Kathy the information without checking it. He had spent virtually all of the money, nearly $1 million, without giving it much thought, unaware of the real circumstances behind it. It was simple to visualize this. How about the bank book that contains $3 million? That is an outdated bank book that is no longer in use from the company. However, why do you inquire? It ought to have been kept inside the safe. Maybe someone had used a thin tool to open the antique safe. That would be quite the accomplishment if that were the case. With a grimace, my aunt looked at Kathy. Did Dad hate me? My brother muttered in a low voice at that point. What? I voiced my frustration at his abrupt comment. Because only Emma receives special treatment. I have no money left after spending everything I have. Both the house and the company will be yours. To such a juvenile comment, my aunt interrupted. You are now an adult. Why would you say stuff like that? You realize how hard Emma had to work to become the company's leader? Auntie was aware of my hardships and efforts, since she knew that I had not taken this decision to take over the company lightly. She defended me with her words. You are therefore responsible for the financial difficulties you are currently experiencing. If you live so extravagantly, it makes sense that your finances would eventually run out. Dad used to worry a lot about your ostentatious lifestyle, I remember. It might have been a mistake to give you cash. Eventually, bankruptcy would be unavoidable if such wastefulness persisted. I voiced his worries, and my brother didn't leave money behind. He spent the lifetime present from Dad in a matter of years. In a way, this is a lesson from Dad. Luxury should come from money gained through one's own labor, not from money that just shows up. My brother hung his head after taking my harsh advice, but Kathy was not persuaded. I've never come across anything similar. Why am I the only one who is unaware of this? It's unbelievable that the place was no longer his. That's because it took place before to your family's arrival. The oldest son's wife here, and I was not notified in the slightest. I didn't learn anything from my dad. This seems odd, Kathy remarked. Although it was evident from Kathy's rage that my father had not spoken to her about the bequest, I could somewhat understand his motivations. Perhaps he had always recognized Kathy's avarice and her strong emotional bond with money. This is not unusual at all. It is Dad's will. Kathy's eyes grew wide at my cool attitude, and she spoke out. I refuse to accept this. I'll take you to court. But I don't think you have any right to regain anything here because you're not even in a position to inherit. As I was making my rational argument, Kathy lost her temper. She broke the glasses on the table, toppled a vase that belonged to our mother, and ran around shouting hysterically. What was meant to be a memorial service for my father became an unanticipated commotion. The event ended reasonably peacefully after my brother and other family members had to step in to calm her down. Kathy, I'll email you the invoice for the glasses and shattered vase later. It is unacceptable to demolish someone's home. Stop talking, you money swindler. After saying that, Kathy quickly got my brother and fled the house. She truly is a money-grubbing person if there ever was one. The horrible ways in which money can transform a person are astounding. That was the day I truly understood the genuine tragedy of Kathy's character. Kathy and my brother ultimately divorced. My brother took the unexpected initiative to file for divorce, despite his tendency to hesitate when making decisions. I started to feel afraid around her after seeing how preoccupied she was with money. My brother, looking pale as if he had lost all visible wealth, pondered what may have happened to him if he had stayed with Kathy. Housewife Kathy said she wouldn't be able to handle being divorced. However, we later learned something about her. Before we were married, Kathy actually had a criminal record for marriage fraud. She shockingly consented to it without hesitation when I brought that up to the attorney and filed for divorce. When I found out about her surprising past, I was stunned. Nonetheless, it might not come as a surprise that she had some problems given her strange obsession with money. Sincerely speaking, I'm glad that the family's relationship with this individual has ended. However, I can't help but be concerned about my brother's imprudence. Being his sister, I'm worried. Boss, Emma, you have a visitor. An employee called and I got up. You don't have to start addressing me as your boss. Although the title still makes me feel a little awkward, I understand how seriously I must take my duty to safeguard this business and its workers. The CEO is in charge, correct? Everybody is anticipating the next paycheck. The joke made by another colleague makes me smile. You guys genuinely enjoy your jokes. Being acknowledged as their leader makes me pleased. I promise to protect this company, Dad. I give the guest my business card, which reads President and CEO, with that resolution in my heart.